And one of the things we talked about was the difficulties in our industry with people moving around, right? They get trapped. Why don't you talk? I think that's a good way to start. So, Steve, why don't you talk about that a little bit, and we'll follow up with some questions on that.
Yeah, no, I know it came up at the night of the event, Annie, and so I appreciate you circling back to it. My pet peeve has been, different practices in our industry. I love our industry, but over the years, there's been certain things that tend to get my goat. And my current complaint, I guess I would say, is the reaction of the competitors, the sense that they own the employees, and particularly, the more talented employees. And there's this sense that in our industry, somehow we're involved in rocket science or cutting edge autonomous driving vehicles or something, when in reality, we sell printers and copiers and multifunctional devices. And so invariably, if you build a better opportunity for a prospective employee, these employees want to look at these opportunities, and time after time, competitors feel like somehow they own the employee, and they try to hold them to non-competes, or in many cases where non-competes aren't legal, like in California, they try to make a confidentiality agreement or a trade secrets agreement fit the bill to look like a non-compete. So very frustrating. Well, it's encouraging to see in California, our new district attorney of California is not tolerating any of that. He's come out and made statements, and a couple months ago sent an alert out saying that California absolutely will not enforce non-competes. Now, obviously, there are exceptions for companies that are acquired that had shareholders, and they're bound by non-competes if they were equity holders. But employees who are looking for better opportunities for themselves and their families, who are looking for an opportunity to make a change, or have this sense of fear. There's this almost chilling effect, because invariably when somebody leaves one company, there's litigation or threats of litigation. And it doesn't just slow down the exiting employee, but it also is used as a reminder to all the employees that are still there. This is what's going to happen to you if you make a change. So I've been very vocal out there, engaging reasonably aggressive with many companies in our field, talking to some of the top talent, and letting them know that, at least in the state of California, there's protections, and the Attorney General is backing any employee who wants to make a change that they deem is in their best interest. Now,
This has been an industry issue forever. And I started my career in sales, and I've seen this. I've been on this side of it, and I have friends who are still selling and are out there in the field, and they get trapped by this, right? They'll be working for a company that makes changes to the comp plan. Fair enough. But if you're going to change my comp plan, I'm probably going to go look somewhere else. But they get down to the final interviews, and then when it comes to the push comes to shove, it's always the same thing. We want you, but we're not going to court for you, right? And you are in a very liberal state as far as those regulations. There are other areas in the South, the Midwest, in New York, they're pretty good about letting it go, but it's no guarantee. And even New Jersey, some of the more liberal states in the East, I know, these guys get stuck, and the company won't let them out, and the company they want to go to isn't going to pay legal fees, to fill this territory and take this to court, where they may wind up spending thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, to bring on one person, when they could just fill that spot with somebody else much easier, maybe less qualified. But it's killing the careers of these guys that want to make a move. And when you say it's not fair, you're right. There is another side to this, though, and I do understand, that a company wants to be protected. A company like you wants to be protected. You don't want to have your ace, your best sales rep, turn around and go to your biggest competitor, right? But there's got to be a middle ground. There's got to be a middle ground. You don't want to keep that person there if they don't want to stay anyway. But to keep someone working for you, because to penalize them, because you don't want your competitor getting stronger. I mean, I guess it's a competitive thing to do, but it's not a good thing to do. It's not good for the person. It's not good for your company. It's not good for your own morale. Where do we go from here? I mean, what do you do when you have a person that wants to leave and you know they're going to go somewhere else? How do you handle that?
So, let me just make a couple of points. One
Yeah.
is I think it's changing nationally. Uh, President Biden came out with an executive order a year or two ago that's making its way through all the challenges that pretty much makes illegal non-competes on a national scope. There are some exceptions to that, but they recognize that labor is a market unto itself. I mean, if you're a talent and you're good at what you do, you should be able to market that talent across all available spectrums without fear of retaliation or litigation.
Yes.
And that's the way California looks at it. There's other states as well, New York, I believe. And then nationally, with the executive order, they're looking at it too. So to get around this, competitors oftentimes try to use a much more narrow definition of what to compete or solicit means to them, using two prongs. They use a trade secrets prong and they use a confidentiality prong, and they try to make everything they do fit. They'll say they don't enforce non-competes, but they'll try to make everything fit into a non-compete or a trade secrets claim. And so we get challenged all the time by our competitors. My position is this: when I talk to a senior salesperson, or even in some cases technicians, I remind them of their responsibility, their ethical responsibility to their current employer. I let them know that they can't double deal while they're still there. I let them know they can't print out confidential information to use, to their gain in the future or the company's future. If they have deals that they've closed while at that employer, they can't unhook those deals. They leave them behind. But then I say that I'll indemnify them. I'll defend them, and I will go litigate for an individual. And I'll do multiple individuals and different litigants as well, because I think, and we saw this back in the Icon days. I don't know if you remember, Andy, but it was
I was at Icon. That's where I started.
So Icon's practice for many, many years was automatic litigation the minute a sales rep left. And without it, it didn't matter on the fact pattern. It was just a instinctive reaction to teach a lesson to everybody.
Yep.
They did it for years. Xerox did it quite aggressively for years. Interestingly, we hired a Xerox sales rep, and we did not get litigation threats from Xerox. So I'm wondering if maybe it's played out so many times in the course there's enough precedent that Xerox has lost its appetite for the battle.
Or maybe you're just, you're being in California, maybe they just don't want to, like you said, lost their appetite, at least in your market. Maybe they're turning the corner, Xerox, from attacking people, from moving into their, moving into a new role, a new opportunity.
Potentially.
It's tough.
And I think, to us as an independent dealer, in looking at the acquisitions and the roll-ups of the private equity around the country, I think we count 5 major private equity plays going on around the country. And then, manufacturers doing the acquisitions they have done to date. We haven't really seen that since COVID, but certainly a significant portion of our market, certainly the market that we target, is made up of these large consolidated dealerships. And we see this as an opportunity, almost like a vacuum forming, because there's a certain group of employees that can't work under corporate, what would you say?
Guidance, regulations, whatever, just a heavy hand of having somebody else. Well, when you work somewhere and you're there 10, 20, 30 years and you get acquired, now there's new masters, right? And you've got your way of doing it. And, sometimes that's just a good time for you to move on. And to your point, like, that person is ready for a change. And for like I get why the dealer doesn't want them leaving, but things have changed. Everything has changed about the company. It's not the same company that they signed on for, right? And to prevent them, to litigate against them, I don't know, man. I started in my career as a salesperson, so I'm always, I think, going to be sympathetic to that side of it, to the side that you're kind of talking about is if a sales rep wants to move, if they need to move, I don't have any problem with maybe signing some or agreeing to, I won't go after my old customers. I'll be in a different territory. Some ways around that. I think that's fair, right? You shouldn't be raiding the old company's customer list, but at the same time, that old company shouldn't be preventing the rep from making a living. And if I've spent 10, 20 years building my reputation, learning and advancing my career, I'm not a brand new rep. I don't need to stay at the same job I've been at since day one. And for you to prevent me from going out and trying to earn a living, I don't think I think that's always kind of been a black eye on our industry. That's always been something that that we've struggled with. I think a lot of people watching this probably do enforce those, and they would probably have very good points on why they do, and I'd love to discuss that with them as well. But I do firmly believe you've got to give people the opportunity to make a living. And if I spent 20 years learning how to sell copiers, if you change the rules, you change the game at my dealership, I want to go somewhere else to sell copiers.
I think fundamentally, and I never had confidentiality or non-compete agreements or non-solicit agreements to be signed by any employee in all the years that I've been in the industry. And quite frankly, I've never had a productive salesperson leave. Certainly, I've had non-productive salespeople ask them to leave. And so I never really worried about it because I was very conscious of what it took to maintain the talent. And then secondly, I think, you have to be careful on certain accounts that not only do we teach our salespeople to sell deeper, but I think also the company has to be more actively involved in getting to know these clients and having more of a team effect. So one person doesn't have all the relationship into those particular accounts. So there's generally good business practices companies can do to protect their customers in spite of the fact that an employee may be leaving that has relationships. But I will say this, and then we see it in financial circles like Morgan Stanley's and Schwab's, where financial consultants will leave even though bring their clients with them. We see it in law firms where partners will even bring their clients with them. We see it, across all of the spectrums where it's very common for somebody who's built a relationship with a customer for 20 or 30 years. They've attended weddings, they've gone to baptisms, they're godfathers or godmothers. And to say that you have to somehow forget this relationship you've had with this customer, this friendship you've had with the customer, and pretend like you never had it because that customer belongs.
Yeah, it's owned by I agree with you 100%.
Doesn't fly over here.
No. And, I mean, if you're a dealership, I think and you kind of hinted at it, there's ways to set yourself up so it's not all run and owned by one sales rep. If there's a team on it, if there's, you would use a CRM, your sales chain or whatever it might be, right? You're using something with notes in it that identifies everyone in there and, talks about where you are with it. It's not their account. They're the lead on the account, right? And there are ways to make those accounts more, but the problem is you're assuming that those reps are all using that CRM the way they're supposed to. And we know they don't always do that. That's a conversation from another time, but this has been absolutely great. I was really excited to talk to you guys about this because I think this is, it's an issue I don't think we spend a lot of time discussing openly because there's two sides of this and as many dealers who are going to watch this and go, yeah, or as many reps, I think there's going to be a lot of reps watching this and say, yeah, that's a problem. There's going to be a lot of dealers that watch this and say, I don't care. They're mine. They work for me. Those are my customers. And, there's two sides to this but it does get awkward. And I know people that have, tried to make career changes and because of where they work without getting into who these companies are, they're still working where they were. Things have resolved. They smooth out. They're up, they're down. But, it comes down to the fact that you shouldn't be locked into a company. It should be a two-way streak. If I want to leave, I should be allowed to leave. You can't keep me here forever. And then require that I sign this document that makes it so that I can't go do this job anywhere else. That's
Absolutely.